You know, in 2019, a lot of cameras have electronic image stabilization that works really well. And if you're a follower of this channel at all, you know that I like to review action cameras, regular cameras, DSLR, mirrorless cameras. Another one of those things is going to be gimbals. Like right now I'm shooting on my Lumix G7 with a gimbal that I'm going to talk about in the next review. But today we're going to talk about the ISteady Pro 2 action camera gimbal, and that's coming right up. So like I said, right now I'm shooting with the Lumix G7 with a 3-axis gimbal, and something about a 3-axis gimbal that really comes in handy is that it allows you the ability to be able to walk around but still get some really nice, non-shaky, but very nice smooth footage. And when it comes to action cameras, even like the GoPro Hero 6, 7, especially the Hero 7 or the Osmo Action, the electronic image stabilization has come a long way. But for those of you that have an action camera that does not have good electronic image stabilization, I'm going to show you the ISteady Pro 2. Inexpensive, 12-hour battery life, can charge your action camera, comes with multiple cables, comes with a nice little tripod on the bottom, and at an affordable price. So let's take a look at some footage. All right, shooting with the ISteady Pro 2 gimbal and the DJI Osmo Action. And right now I'm shooting in HDR 1080p 30 frames per second. So Rocksteady is not offered with HDR on, so what a great chance to use this camera in HDR mode along with the gimbal just to kind of give it a test to see how's its stabilization. And I guess, you know, when you're vlogging with a camera rig and you're using like the Osmo Action, which the Rocksteady is great, but if there's those circumstances that you want to use HDR mode to kind of get that high dynamic range and a little bit better image quality, but you want some image stabilization, this is where a very inexpensive gimbal can come in handy. All right, testing out the new ISteady Pro 2 gimbal. And this time I thought I would just kind of compare it to the ISteady Pro, the original gimbal. So what I've got the GoPro Hero 6 right here, and it is shooting 1080p 30 frames per second with electronic image stabilization off. And in this hand I've got the GoPro Hero 5 black, 1080p, electronic image stabilization is off, and they're both in linear mode. So we're just going to kind of see how they compare to one another as far as just walking. So is there an advantage between one or the other? Now I will say that the original ISteady Pro does tend to drift a little bit, where the new ISteady Pro 2 gimbal does not drift at all. The motors are larger, which I kind of already covered. But what I'm also going to do is just a quick little audio test, but let me get out of the wind here. We'll get into some shade and we'll just do a quick little audio test just to see, can we hear any motor noise? Okay, so with the GoPro Hero 5 and the old ISteady Pro, see if we hear any motor noise. Now GoPro Hero 6 with ISteady Pro 2. if there's any motor noise. And we're going to stick them both in the computer and see how they compare to one another, even though both cameras are not identical. You've got the Hero 5 and the Hero 6, so the color profile may be a little bit different. But since they're both shooting the same frame rate, resolution, linear mode, and no image stabilization, they're going to give you an accurate depiction of what stabilization is actually like for both of these gimbals. Okay, now we're shooting the Osmo Action 1080p, 30 frames a second with Rocksteady on, in conjunction with the ISteady Pro 2 gimbal, which in theory should give you the best possible image stabilization possible, because you got the electronic image stabilization of the Osmo Action, which that Rocksteady is just fantastic, and then you add it in conjunction with a 3-axis handheld gimbal. In theory, it should give you some outstanding image stabilization. Now, in some instances, like with some phones that have electronic image stabilization, the EIS will kind of fight against the gimbal. But you know what? Let's try out some really cool slow-mo footage with the gimbal just to see how it looks. And if you're interested in how to do the Inception mode, once you turn the gimbal on, you face it horizontal, tap the mode button 4 times, and then you can do this little joystick and rotate the camera, which will give you the Inception mode. Now let's take a look at the box. It's a nice, it's kind of a soft shell box that the ISteady Pro 2 comes into. Now you've got some extra charging cables. Now these cables are to charge from the gimbal to your action camera. To charge the gimbal, you charge it right there on the side port, plus you have the USB out so that you can charge maybe a cell phone. Still has the 4 LED to show you how much power is in the gimbal. And one of the main things that's changed, if you look at that back arm, it's actually at an angle now so you can see the rear screen. Boot up is very quick. Turn it on and boom, it comes right to life. Now there's a little slider on the left-hand side which will help you correct the roll if it's just a little bit off. And if you have it all the way off, and you want to recenter it, all you got to do is push the trigger button twice and it goes right back to recenter. Now if you look at the motor size, it's actually been upgraded. The motors are larger on the new ISteady Pro 2, which is giving you a lot more stability. And if you look at the size difference, there is a little bit of a size difference, but that is because the tripod is a little bit different. Now here's the key thing. On the old one, the roll motor would actually, the bar would hit onto the gimbal, but it doesn't now with this new design. So there are some small, subtle changes between the two gimbals, one being a trigger. Now the trigger not only recenters, but it also gives you, when you push that trigger down, it goes into action mode, which means when you're panning left or right, it will turn as fast as you are moving, so that you can catch that shot. So if there's a car whipping by, you can catch it. You don't have to wait for the gimbal to slowly catch right up to it. And another one of the wonderful things about this gimbal is it still boasts its 12 hours of battery use, which is, to me, fantastic for such an inexpensive gimbal. When you think the original ISteady Pro, $89, for $10 more, you can get the ISteady Pro 2, And remember, it's also splash proof. Now don't go jumping into the pool with it, but you can be outside if you're using your GoPro Hero 5, 6, or 7, or even the Osmo Action that are waterproof, and you're outside and it starts to rain, you don't have to worry about your gimbal getting wet and malfunctioning, because you can sprinkle it down and it's going to work just fine. So what I think about the iSteady Pro 2 gimbal, I like it very much. I think it's a massive improvement. Just a little subtle changes, adding the trigger on the front so that you can recenter, also to do a quick action sweep or pan. I think the enlarged motors with a better algorithm is much needed, because now it gives you a lot smoother, stable footage. The ability to have all these 3 different types of cables. You've got the micro, you've got the mini, and also a USB Type-C so that you can charge your action camera straight from the gimbal. These are all great pluses for a gimbal that is under $100. Product link in the description below so that you can check it out for yourself. Also, hey, if you like coffee cups and you want to support a YouTube channel, I've got a coffee cup. Support a YouTuber. And as always, until the next review, have yourself a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.